oftentimes after I have delivered messages, channeled, engaged in the psychic mediumship work, people are really wanting to know my own personal story, and they're asking questions about, have you always been able to do this? How are you doing this? How did you arrive at this gift or this capability, right? So, this is part three of the story of my spiritual awakening and honing this gift, arriving to the point of doing this work professionally. And so, if you haven't checked out part one and part two of discovering my spiritual gifts, you may want to watch those recordings before circling back around to this one, but you certainly don't have to. Part one recap is about childhood experiences leading up through adolescence, and includes pieces about the getting a little bit more removed from recognizing those spiritual gifts. I think most children are born, and we we have that connection, and we're close to the other side, and we keep that. And this is why you'll hear about children telling stories about past life memories. And by the time they're, I think a lot of kids talk about that when they're like 3, and then by the time they're 6 or 7, the ability to really tap into that information seems to pull away as they are focused on development and growing, of course, right? Because like we're here to be a human. So this is a part of the forgetting happens by design, by divine design. Um, so in part two, as I am, like in my late 20s and have my first pregnancy, this is where I start kind of talking about the journey of my own personal practice with meditation, and beginning to notice that I was receiving messages in those meditations, which I thought was very much a unique personal experience, right? Like I am getting connection and divine guidance, signs, all the things from my personal spirit team. And at that point in time, I was not at all thinking to label myself as a psychic medium. It didn't register like that. I thought this is a very personal connection with my spirit team. I had never given direct mediumship type of messages to other people, and it wasn't even in the realm of my conceptualizing that that was a possibility for me, and it was not in my conscious awareness or um, conscious plans at that point. So I had the experience with my second pregnancy that was an ectopic, as I was pulling in to get the methotrexate treatment. Um, that some of the signs that seemed, the messages that were very, very piecemeal, like boop, 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 these little puzzle pieces. It really literally was not full. I'm thinking of like when a little tiny baby starts to speak and you see their development just bloom over the first couple of years of growth and toddlerhood. It felt kind of like that, like a very slow trickle. It was like little word, one word per each meditation that seemed to be disconnected. I didn't make sense of it until then. I drove in to get that treatment for the ectopic pregnancy. And as I was parking my car, all of those 5 to 7 different words that I didn't make sense of prior to were strung together beautifully in this message about grief and divine support and guidance and a higher, kind of purpose and plan to life, that was channeled through this podcast that I was listening to as I parked. So I was just, full chills through my body, and it made a period of time in my life that was incredibly difficult, um, infused with love and a higher perspective. I'll say it that way. And I want to also bring some of the gravity of the situation forward as I talk about it as well, because I certainly don't want there to be misunderstanding of you thinking, oh, like la di da, she's floating in the clouds and Pollyanna and, etc., because I'm holding the duality of the full situation. Was that a difficult time of my life? 100%. Was I experiencing pain, grief, sorrow, all the things along that journey? Absolutely, I was. And so, the way I think of how it feels to me to be able to simultaneously hold the love and light and the knowingness of how divinely loved and protected and supported I am is like this. When there is a storm raining down on me, it is having that connection to the divine and that knowingness and that awareness and that receptivity to being able to, in that more real time, receive messages of love and support, synchronicities, and like, hey, you're on the right path despite how difficult this feels right now. Is That's not like, oh, suddenly there's rainbows and sunshine. It's still storming down. I'm still getting wet. I'm still getting rained down on, in some harsh winds. But it's the difference between being submerged in that, like, I'm thinking of like Titanic, like being submerged in the cold, and what's that? What's that word called? Like treading. I think that's treading water, and like tirelessly treading water and like hardly keeping my mouth above water and gurgling, right? Through the storm, versus being in a boat. Now, not a yacht where I'm not getting rained on, like very simple wooden kind of canoe, right? So I am still getting rained down on. I am feeling all the human emotions. I am allowing myself to feel those things, being connected into your ability to connect with your spirit team and to recognize all of that. It's not meant to pull you out of the human experience, it is walking alongside you. And transforming how that journey feels. So, wanted to add that piece in as well so that it doesn't, you get the gravity of the situation. Like, I was in despair and it was a difficult time for me, and obviously for multiple reasons, because of the loss and that ectopic pregnancy for me was really drawn out. I had to go in to get blood drawn every other day for 3 weeks or something like that. It was like uh, they wanted to just keep monitoring the HCG levels, and it was like drawn out, waiting to get to the point of them finally making a determination and conclusion so that I could move forward with figuring out the next steps. In the meantime, I was feeling awful. So, anyhow, beauty within it. This is part of the story of discovering my spiritual gifts. I read the book Spirit Babies after that and continued my meditation practice. And I just had this very intuitive connection with that baby, my son. And I did those spirit baby meditations. I knew this little guy was a boy um, well before he was here, and felt his energy. It's so amazing to be able to have that gift to connect in, because the energy so matches his energetic vibrations in the here and now. So it's a really neat experience to be able to have that connection prior to conception and birth. So I had a lot of intuitive information and connection coming through the meditation, where I specifically was calling and connecting to his energies and sharing these, these sentiments and communication with him, really, in my meditation, which was a lot about surrender and leaning into just, I wasn't praying at the time for, like, God, please bring this baby to me. Please come. When are you coming here? Can you incarnate? I really had reached a point of surrendering that piece, and the communication was more like this in that prayer. I love you so deeply. I feel you, sweetheart. I feel your energy, and I will always love you. And it's a part of your purpose to come here. I can feel the nudge. I can feel your draw. I feel you around me. And you're going to be so loved and supported always when you're here. You have a lovely a lovely setup of people ready for you. However, this is your journey. No rush. Like, you come whenever you feel ready. But intuitively, I felt like this little soul needed a little bit of encouragement around his, like, safety. And a part of why I say that is because I also was getting some dreams during that period of time about his past life traumas and experiences. Oop, okay. Um, all right. Sorry. I like it sometimes when there's, like, little noises that come through that feel like they are also part of the plan of just an underlining or exclamation mark to what we're talking about. So, so I continued with this journey with connecting with my son's energy, the spirit baby energy, well before conception. And this was like really shortly after, probably within the next 2 months after the treatment for the ectopic pregnancy. I again was getting, like, some information in the meditation that felt very sparse, like one word type of things. And I remember I got March 2nd, and I had told my mom at the time, who also is very open minded and spiritually connected when it comes to this kind of communication. I said, I have no idea what this means, but there's something about March 2nd. March 2nd, I was in meditation. I don't know what about March 2nd, but that's what I'm getting, March 2nd. And I think it's connected to this next child, the spirit baby. And this was um, mid-February of that year. So March 2nd had not come and passed yet, right? So I shared that information with my mom. Then March 2nd comes and goes. Nothing happens. I kind of forget about it. And I ended up knowing that I was pregnant with him end of June, that following, like, several months later. And so there was nothing in my mind at that point about March 2nd at all. It was kind of like I had forgotten about it. And then my due date for this baby was February 23rd, which I was thinking is like, there's no way he's going to be born in March. This too far away, right? And I honestly, at that point, I wasn't even thinking about that because I think it was out of my mind. I just dismissed it when March 2nd of that year came in and passed. So as we move along the timeline, it gets closer to delivery. February 23rd comes and goes, and I'm still very much pregnant with a huge old belly. And I say that because my son was a very big baby. And I remember being in Wegmans one day and having a woman come up to me to say, like, oh, any day now. during my pregnancy with my son. And I said, like, oh no, actually, I'm in the second trimester. And she just looked at me and was like, oh, okay, well, have a good day. I think it didn't bother me, but I think she felt a little like not sure how to respond to that. But yeah, apparently in my second trimester, I looked like it was at any day now, if that gives you an indication. He was over 10 pounds at birth. So his due date comes and passes. And I end up having another appointment, and I talk to my mom after and say, so they set an induction date just in case if he doesn't come sooner, to be safe and to have that set up. And she goes, okay, when is it? And I said, March 2nd. She goes, oh my God, Miranda, no way. Do you remember over a year ago? I'm getting the chills as I'm saying this. Amazing. Do you remember over a year ago, you told me March 2nd was somehow connected to this spirit baby well before you were pregnant for him? Do you remember that? I'm like, yes, I remember that. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I told you about it. She goes, honey, call me if you have, if you go into labor sooner, obviously. But I'm sure you're not going to call me. I'll see you March 2nd on that date. He's not coming sooner. And he didn't. So he was born on March 2nd. Amazing. Amazing. And there are so many other little stories of the messages I was getting directly and the validation. Besides that, one other little thing too, like bald eagle is a primary spirit animal of mine and has been for the last like 10. I've been aware of that for probably the last 10 years, if not 7 for sure. And I see them all the time, and specifically at times where I am needing some encouragement of, look at who you are, recognize your divine essence, and know how supported and loved and protected you are. I see. And also when it's like I'm thinking of something and I need a yes, then that will be something that I'll be noticing too. Is like, yep, you're on path. This is right direction when I see bald eagles. So we're driving to the hospital that morning for the induction for my son's birth, and I am just feeling very nervous and scared. And I think I was, for some reason, and now I'm saying that, I'm like, I think it might also just be some of the past life energy stuff as well. But for some reason, I was like, just thinking, like, please and the topic as well, right? Connected to this baby and just all of that stuff, triggering some fear. I was thinking to myself, like, please let this baby be okay. Please let me be okay. I was worried that one or both of us was not going to be okay throughout the process. And so I was sending up that message to say, like, I'm worried about this. If I can just get one sign on the way to the hospital as we drive up on this, 30-minute drive to the hospital, I will just feel so much better. Please, please help me, right? Like, have a sign so that I can go into this experience without having this energy. And a bald eagle swoops down, and literally one of its talons scraped along the windshield. That's how close it was. It swooped in front of the windshield of the car that I was in. Full chills. And my mom is in her car behind. And she lays on the horn, beep, beep, beep. She's like waving out the window. She's like, ah. I'm like, I know. I saw it. You saw it too. She's like, amazing. Because she's one of my primary people that I had access to throughout this entire unfolding, who really was not questioning me, who really supported me in discovering my spiritual gifts and leaning into that more, and said, like, yes, Miranda, this stuff is real. Like, yeah, what you're experiencing, that's amazing. Wow. She shared the excitement and the joy with me. And man, what a gift. I think to myself, like, I'm sure just naturally the divine sets it up so everyone who is going through that type of massive spiritual awakening and discovering their gifts comes into alignment and contact, at least with one other person who, when you share about what you're going through, is right there with you in that. To be able to have that was just an absolute blessing. So, so many little things like that. So, fast forward to maybe, I don't know, maybe 9 months later, a year later, something like that. I have, my son is still a baby, but it's sometime later. And I'm continuing to get all of these beautiful messages in my, what I think is like this very linear understanding of what's happening to me. Again, it was like this column of me, myself, and I and my spirit team, and I'm getting these messages. I had no clue at that time that I would end up doing this so forthright as a profession, or that I would ever identify myself as a psychic medium. I just thought I'm on an amazing spiritual journey, having some messages with my own, learning how to tap into my own personal guidance, right? Amazing. I love it. So one night in the middle of the night, I'm up for a feeding with my son. He was a breastfed baby, up every 2 hours, if not hour and a half, for over a year. So I had just been up with him. It was like 2 a.m. I had just nursed him, put him back to sleep, and then I laid back down myself. And as I laid back down, after I set him down, just bang, 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 there comes these messages through that are like five different little pieces of information. And the person gives their full name, first, middle, last. And for sake of like confidentiality, I'm going to um, keep some of that, what's the word, anonymous. And I'll shift out what I use as examples, and use something like similar but different from the actual content. So I get like first, middle, last name, first, middle, last name, and it's like repeated, the name. I'm like, okay, this person's name. And then these 4 or 5 little bits of information, I'm just going to make stuff up here, for example, to be like red ball, like yellow duck, green sky, soccer. I'm like, okay, what just happened there? But the energy was distinct. I could feel. I wish I could think of a better way to describe that for people who haven't experienced that before. But I think, on a very just human understanding of that, there's this phrase of your energy speaks when you walk into the room before you speak, and you get that little subtle vibration of another human's energy. And another little attempted example of that is if you're in like a big crowded space, and I think they have studies about this too that you can look at, and somebody stares at you and directs their energy to you, you can feel it, right? And then you turn around and sure enough you see somebody staring at you, um, that kind of thing. So it had an energetic imprint to it that felt distinct and specific. And I couldn't get it out of my head. It was like those couple of things that were said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of information, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just kept looping, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't fall asleep. Like this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is just looping through my head on repeat. So I got up and went out to the kitchen and just wrote down the information. It was only a little bit of stuff, but I just wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whether the little messages on a piece of paper. And once I had written it down, and I went and laid back down, the energy cleared and I was able to fall back asleep. And I think it was just like, I've had that happen repeatedly. And I know there are a couple of people who watch some of these videos who also are very intuitive, who have had the similar experience. You can, once you start getting used to receiving like that, the energy won't clear until you deliver the message, or like make sense of what it is that you're getting. It'll just kind of repeat like that. So once it was clear that I had the message, I wrote it down and I had the intentionality behind it. It cleared, I went to sleep, and the next morning then, I'm like, oh my goodness, this happened. I'm talking to my family about it, some of them, um, and like, what should I do with this information? And I knew the name of this person in connection to like a relative. And so, like I knew who the message was meant for. The message wasn't for me. It was, hey, deliver this to so and so, right? And then birthday had come through with it, birthday. So I was looking up this person's birthday through obituary, and I'm like, no, this isn't the birthday. And asked, when is the person who was supposed to be the receiver of the message, when is that person's birthday? No, it's not right now. I'm like, okay, there's something about birthday. And I was kind of on the edge of, should I like get this person's information, call them now and tell them what just happened? And I'm like, no, no, no. And then about a week later, my dad messages me and says, hey, come on down to this restaurant tonight, for I'm having like a little birthday get together. Like, oh, and he was very, like, I knew this other person might be there, and didn't know for sure, but might be. So I ended up going to that event. And sure enough, I literally brought that journal that I wrote those 5 things in because I just had the feeling. Sure enough, this person walks to the door. Oh my goodness, let me tell you. Like I said, I was not in a mindset of anybody in my life knowing, oh, Miranda's a psychic medium. Not at all. I didn't know that. I did not know that. My mind was blown when I got that information delivered from this person. And that was my first piece of mediumship, and knowing like, oh my goodness, I can talk to other people in spirit and deliver messages to their loved ones. Like, it wasn't something I had held at all as a possibility. So this person walks in. I see him. I'm trying to build up the courage. And listen, at this point, what I'll say is, if it was just from my own like humanness, I wouldn't, in my personal life, I'm not very much of an extrovert. Honestly, I don't like the limelight in settings like that. I tend to be like a hang back kind of calm energy person. So I was nervous. And I was shaking. Like, my adrenaline was coursing through. My voice was like a little shaky. I'm like, I can't walk up to this person and say, "Hey, I think I have a message for you from so and so. By the way, I've been on my own spiritual journey, and I have started to notice over the past couple of years I've received messages directly for myself. I didn't realize that I could do this for other people, but your person just came through to me, and I think I have some messages. Are you open to hearing them?" So that's exactly what I said. And while I said it, my voice was like cracking. I was shaking a little bit. Ugh, it was way outside of my comfort zone, way outside of my comfort zone. And the thing about it too is, until, as I was getting comfortable with that and having my first experiences, there's also just such an intimacy to being inside of the love between you and your loved one on the other side. And I'm starting to get chills as I'm dipping into that already, just thinking of it. It is a direct invitation to be inside of the frequency of the love that you share with that person. The communication that comes to me isn't like human words, right? It is love energy that carries frequencies of information inside of it, that then, when they reach me, take form either through clairaudience, clairvoyance, just claircognizance, so just a knowingness that the information is there to be able to deliver to you. So that was a piece of my nerves too, is like, this is such an intimate thing. And do I belong here inside of this love that it exists between these two people, right? This sacred energy and connection. This person is very sweet and gracious, and little had I known the person had on their own part of spiritual healing and the journey, sought out, um had, like, let me just say, like, was open to working with psychic mediums, and said, like, yeah, please go ahead, share what you have to share. And I said, okay. And I very nervously said, like, the one, two, three, four, five, and said those pieces of information. And it also, what I want to share, and hopefully this is helpful for people who are starting to tap into their own gifts and who can kind of resonate with this, and including, when I say tap into your own gifts, we all have an ability to receive. We all do. Now, is everyone going to be the next, like, LeBron James of psychic mediumship? No. And it's not everyone's personal calling to channel and develop those into part of your profession and delivering for other people. But on an individual level, I do think it's part of New Earth experience for everyone to start connecting into yourself, your higher self, your connection, your spiritual truth, the essence of who you are, which means dipping into a new level of embodiment and ascension that allows you to live in alignment and stay on your highest path. And that, in my opinion, requires everyone individually to start recognizing your own ability to speak to your personal spirit team. Ooh, my nose is getting itchy from this connection. If you haven't heard that happen before, I just recently, as I have been watching other channels, that have been like, oh, that's what it is. Like this cobwebby type of feeling that starts to happen from the energy. Um, okay. Sorry. Yes. So, which is, I'm getting so much chills right now. It's wild. So, validation on that, to say everyone has the ability to directly receive messages about yourself from your spirit team, your guardian angels, your loved ones, that helps you to be able to have that feedback loop to pull in your higher self and navigate life in that kind of a way. It doesn't mean everyone is going to do that as a soul calling for their own, everyone's path is going to look slightly different. So anyhow, um I delivered those messages, and oh, now I'm coming full circle back to the point. I lost it for a second of where I was going because it dipped into a different direction. But and then that energy is like, ooh, really distracting me. um Okay. My point was, when I had those five things to deliver, it felt so random. Like, this person's gonna be like, what are you talking about? Red ball? I don't know what you mean. Yellow duck? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, it didn't, the information felt very charadey and seemingly unimportant because they're not connected to my memories. I don't have the memory bank to link the red ball as, oh my gosh, he's going to know exactly what I'm talking about with the red ball. And it's one of the last memories they shared together that was absolutely a huge, significant thing. And he will know what that means. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I just was like, red ball, this is weird, not going to make sense. It felt scary. It felt very, maybe scary is not the right word. I felt like I was very vulnerable and having some insecurity and going like, all right, all right, are you sure, to spirit, right? But, and that kind of thing has been a lot of the journey of my, I want to say, like, I'm going to pull this from spirit too. How many different more clear ascensions have I had? Because I don't think spiritual awakening is a one and done. It is way, and it's different for everyone too. Mine has been like a beautiful white feather kind of rocking back and forth in the air, right? Like layers, levels, but they have all been, it hasn't been like, boom, you're done, boom, you're done, right? It's like a very continual process and an unfolding and a blossoming. And I want to say I'm on my third big ascension right now that is like happening. I'm just getting that intuitively. Like there's been one, two big kind of one. This is like maybe the third. If you put it into like bigger chapters, then I'd say that. All those have been a lot of fluid unfolding within each of those different points. So, so yes, I felt very insecure and vulnerable. However, a big part of the journey for me over that first 7 years of this spiritual awakening has been this: trust and faith, trust and faith, trust and faith. If I, and even in that moment, this is how I felt for my very first time serving as a medium. I, in that moment, chose to share despite how vulnerable I felt, because I just felt so honored to be trusted by the spirit and by the divine in general. That to me feels like immense trust that they have put into me, right? Of coming to me, allowing me to be inside that pocket of love and to receive the information like that, that it is just such high vibrational love frequency that carries the mediumship messages. That's really what it is. And so I thought to myself, I'm going to choose to follow and deliver what it is that spirit is asking me to do, no matter how uncomfortable it makes me feel. And I'm going to make that choice every time. And so I did that. And this person was like, yes, that all makes sense. And tears flowing down their face. And oh my goodness, it was absolutely amazing and so beautiful. So that was the first time that my mind and concept of what was happening for me just expanded a millionfold, right? And all different directions of like, whoa, okay. So it was probably 6 or 7 months after that delivery that I started getting the nudges about signing up for the Angel Reiki and Mediumship program that I ended up completing, which I talked about in one of my other videos. So I won't say much about that, but I was getting that nudge from spirit. This is the next thing on your path. You need to do this. It took me some convincing. Eventually, and spirit was consistent with it. Eventually, I invested in myself to sign up and do that, which I did. My spiritual gifts unfolded a million times more. There were a certain number of volunteer sessions that I did as a part of that program where I was actively practicing the psychic information, the mediumship, and the channeling type of thing. I do that because I think some people don't fully know the difference of what's the distinction between angel messenger, channeling, psychic, mediumship, right? And so I used to do these, what do they call them? I can't think of what it was called, but it was with the medium in the middle, Stephanie. I can't remember her last name, but if you look up medium in the middle, she has a podcast, you'll be able to find her. And she has these mediumship circles that she would host where, um, you could practice your mediumship with other people who are not paid receivers of it, right? To be able to just hone the skill more. And so I had asked her that question. It's like I have trouble sometimes distinguishing as I was trying to learn the difference, because I would, during that period of time, now I'm it's like I'm at a different spot right now than I was at this point. But my question was around this. Like sometimes I'm getting this information. I can't always distinguish what is just like information about this person's life, where I am getting information about a really important relationship that they have, but it's not mediumship, it's psychic information. And she explained, when you feel the information, kind of the energy, kind of like, and it feels like it's coming this way. And again, this might be beyond for people who are not doing this work or connected into this level, but I'll still share. When that energy feels like it's coming this way, almost like horizontally or laterally, like on the same plane, it is psychic information. It's you're not connecting to a spirit, you're connecting to live energies of people who are living, right? So like I can connect with somebody and go, oh, you have a daughter that you're really close with who does this and this, and that daughter's living, she's not passed, right? I'm just getting the energy of those entanglements, and the close soul connections comes through psychically. And that's not the same thing as mediumship. And mediumship feels a little different, and it feels like the energy's upward, right? Because the person you're connecting with is not on the same plane, and they're not embodied, they're now in a different dimension. So mediumship is when you're specifically connecting with someone's loved one who has crossed over. um, and then there's realms of other things in between about, I think angelic channeling, and those kind of things. But the journey along the way, as I have just really dove into this and followed those nudges from spirit of like, now you can do this, let's go, like you're meant to do this, this is part of your path. And I've honed in on that skill, as I said, over the first several years, even after I did that Angel Reiki course, and I knew like I can do this, and I clearly can do it, right? I was working a more traditional job at the time in like clinical practice, and I had a very partitioned, divided mindset about the clinical work versus the spiritual gifts that I have. And a piece of that was because of my sense at the time of wanting to be, there goes that feeling again, wanting to be honoring regulatory bodies, institutional setups, like the C suite individuals, right? Of, ooh, I don't know that these authorities are going to be okay with me delivering spiritual channeled messages and mediumship to the people who are sitting down with me, who are coming in for this, particular service. And so I was like really holding back on that, and keeping that boundary. And I'm thinking, and then like spirit just was like, Miranda, you're gonna learn this lesson, girl. Let's go. Bust these doors open. Knock, knock, knock. We're here. What are you gonna choose? Who's your highest authority, Miranda? Who is it? Is it this regulatory body, or is it your divine higher self and your life path mission? And when it push comes to shove, and you say, "Hey, y'all are trusting me with this gift and this information and this calling and the delivery of this sacred, life-changing, transformative healing that really is just, I can't even say 20 times different from not delivering it." Like, people come in for healing. I'm just looking over, my clock is like totally wrong right now. It's actually like 9:11 p.m., but my clock that I unplugged to paint this room and plugged back in, I just never reset it for like days, and it says 111 on it, 111. So if you have been seeing 111, take this as your confirmation that your spirit team is bringing this up for a reason and getting your attention, that you're starting to have these things calling to you as well. So I'm thinking of a specific time where this man comes in and sits down, and I immediately am feeling the energy. And this is where I was more in my confined role of like, I better follow the authorities that be and make sure that I am keeping this stuff separated out, right? And he comes and he sits down, and I immediately am like, whoop, I can feel the person that this person lost. I know that he's here connected to this, and I'm just like, do just ask the questions, just go through this like process and do the things structured. And so I'm like holding back. I can feel this energy, and then bang, he starts to mention this person, and my light is flickering. it's a I'm getting the chills again. This energy is strong tonight. I guess I picked the right time to channel today. um it's like a little desk lamp. It's right on the desk in front of him and I. It's right between us, and like flicker, 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 three big flickers like that. And for those of you who have experienced this before, you'll know what I mean, because there's a very listen, I'm here in reality too, and sometimes light bulbs die and need to be replaced. And that happens. Or sometimes there's a storm that messes with the power lines and the lights will flicker on and off. Not everything is a spiritual message like that. But when it is, you feel it and you see it, and the patterning of it is different. You can just tell. I knew immediately, and I knew he knew. I saw him looking at it, and I looked at him, and I just smiled, and he kind of looked at it again and smiled back at me. And then I just kept it cruising and I'm like, let's move it on, move along, ask the next question, because I felt at the time like my concept of ethics, and I guess just that, like ethics in that career, was being called into question here, of what authority am I going to choose, right? um, and that was something that I had to work through. So I was holding back, and then toward the end of session it happened again, and I was almost about to walk this person out the door, and then I just felt that energetic nudge from spirit that was like, don't let me down, don't do this, right? Like, I'm calling on you, right? So then I was like, listen, this is going to sound really weird, but on the side, I'm also a psychic medium, and I'm getting really strong energy. Are you open to me sharing some things? And when he saw that light flicker, that's why I smiled at you, because I knew it's connected to that. And he's like, yes, absolutely. And it was like all these beautiful messages, right? Like, this person is telling me like, your beautiful blue eyes, your beautiful blue eyes, mama bear energy, like all these beautiful messages and things that were specific, very specific about the personality and a variety of different things. And he's like, oh my god, thank you so much, right? And I saw the person a couple weeks later, and when he came back in, I said, the light flickering, I feel like I need to say more to you about that. I'm getting the message of, take note of that, because this person will be communicating to you through the light flickering now that you've made the connection in my office in between. So just like, take note of that. And it was going to be like, it was a very short interaction with this person. I wasn't going to see him on an ongoing basis, right? So this is my last time touching base, so I was just giving that party message. And he said, it already happened. Since I saw you 2 weeks ago and you delivered that message and I saw that light flash, my lights have been flickering in my house nonstop over this past 2 weeks. And I know that it is her, and it's brought me so much peace and comfort. And I now, just from that one time with you, am able to have this way of feeling and knowing that energy, that like her energy is connecting with me outside of sessions. So it was amazing. And it was a journey. I ended up, I think I've mentioned in other videos, I saw my own soul therapist, who, I'm going to give her a little plug here, is absolutely amazing and really helps people to tap into developing their own intuition further. And she calls herself a soul therapist. Her name is Christy Forsyth. And she works out of like the Horseheads area primarily. Her practice is called Clarity by Christy for anybody who's up toward that direction, and is interested. And so, I remember around that period of time working with her and her saying, I'm getting channeling that message, which I was already getting on my own intuitively, but it's so helpful to be able to have these earth angels, these helpers who are here to just validate and help pull you along further. These little just affirmations and cheerleading and encouragement as you're on your own ascension journey and the unfolding is happening. So she's reaffirming and bringing through the similar message of what was happening at the time of my life there, which was you need to free yourself of these chains connected to wanting to be always in good graces, if you will, with what you consider to be authority figures, institutions, figures, whatever, where you have, and this connects back to other pieces of my own human experience with these kind of my own kind of like childhood history and survival skills, um, coping skills, perfectionism, stuff like that. Of like, I like to know I'm doing well, and there's performance involved in that. And so it was, this kind of thing of who is your highest authority, Miranda, right? And that is God energy. That is the divine. This is the soul path calling I have. This is my divine essence. This is my higher self. And I had to really relationship build around that, right? And dip into that energy more and find some safety and sense of protection, which I'll probably share more about that, more depths of that journey of how I arrived at breaking some of these chains around really allowing my spirit, my body, my energy, all the things to feel like I'm fully safe to be seen and to step into this work on a bigger platform, on a no holds bar. Hey, when it comes to a question of authority and I'm being guided in this way from the divine versus hearing this contradictory, guidance from a different source, that is my highest authority, and I will choose that and follow that and be led the way I am meant to from the seat of that partnership, if that makes sense. And right around that time, I started to more freely share the messages and follow the path. And every single time I did, my confidence got built, my skills got built, my sense of noticing subtle energies, just really, I tuned in more. I think it's just with anything, like the more time you have practicing and being inside of this certain skill or energy, the more refined it becomes. And so it was like, boop, 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 it changed. And I built my own type of fluid and fluent communication with spirit, so that the things before where I would be able to give somebody a 20-minute session and like maybe 5 different validations became, I can easily talk to somebody for an hour and there are like really detailed pieces of information, not just validating memories or information like that, but also information about here's how it's me, Here's how you know that I still am aware of you and your life. And I know about these things that have happened since my passing. Here's what you need to know about the thing that you have been mulling over and ruminating about in your mind about your journey. Here's where I'm guiding you, right? Like details that have expanded. So it's really just through putting myself out there and practice and repetition and experience, just like other things that have carried me along this journey as I started opening up to that world as well of going like, all right, let's do this. I'm letting my guard down. I'm going to bring forward information when I'm told to bring it forward, and that's what it's going to be. I would leave interactions with people, and my energy would be like this, amazing, like amazing, and then I would go out and look around. I'm like, oh my goodness, I feel like unsafe to share. I didn't know who was a safe person to be able to say like, hey y'all, did you know I'm also a psychic medium? And guess what exchange I just had with this person, right? I still felt a little like unsure of that, and literally I asked for help from the divine. I didn't even know that it was going to be like, I kind of just didn't know the power of my ask, but I'm sure glad I did. And the ask was, oh, you know what, I'm really at a point right now where I feel like I need some companions to be able to feel more comfortable to do this more fully, so that I don't feel like I'm doing something that kind of has an energy of I need to be secretive about it or whatnot, right? And then boom, shift happened in my environment, and as a part, like a physical shift into like a different space altogether. And then boop, 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 here comes three beautiful, intuitive people who are very spiritually aligned, who can channel, who start having conversations with me about spirituality. The first day that I met each of them, if not at least within like the first week, we were getting into this stuff. I'm like, thank you. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you so much. Here's this crew of people that allow me to be able to really unlock a different level of this journey for myself. And this leads into me having the readiness, the belief in myself and this work that I do, um, and having that support, really, that safety, that support to make this big leap 5 months ago now, 5 to 6 months ago now, of stepping full time into doing this work as, employed by myself, no holds bar, full concentration of my healing capabilities being delivered to the people that I work with. So I think that is plenty long enough. I imagine this is probably way longer a story than I expected to record, but we'll roll with it, and I will wrap it up there.